How's it going, guys? It's TacTixHD here with my NHL 2013-2014 season predictions. So before I start my predictions, guys, I just want to let you know what the new conference and divisions look like, just so you guys all understand. So in the West, guys, we have two divisions, and same with the East. So in the West, we have Central and Pacific. In the Central, we have Chicago, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Nashville, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. Winnipeg obviously coming to the West, and Detroit and Columbus both going to the East. And the Pacific, we have Anaheim, Calgary, Edmonton, LA, Phoenix, San Jose, Vancouver. Next, guys, in the Eastern Conference, we have two divisions, the Atlantic and Metropolitan Division. In the Atlantic, we have Boston, Buffalo, Detroit, Florida, Montreal, Ottawa, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. And the Metropolitan, we have Carolina, Columbus, New Jersey, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington. So the way qualifying for the playoffs works, guys, we'll take the West, for instance. The two division leaders will finish first and second. So Chicago wins the Central, Anaheim wins the Pacific. Those will be 1 and 2. Then the next two teams in each division will fill out the 3rd to 6th spots. The 7th and 8th spots were both wildcard spots. So let's say LA Kings and Phoenix Coyotes were the 7th and 8th best team. Even if, let's say, they each had 100 points and Dallas had 90 points, they would still fill out that 7th and 8th spot because they are the wild card teams. And so basically there will be 3 teams from Central, 3 teams from Pacific, filling out the top 6. Same within the East, there will be 3 teams from the Atlantic and 3 teams from the Metropolitan, filling out the top 6 for certain. And then the next 2 teams are just the next best 2 teams in the conference. So without further ado, guys, I'll get on to my season predictions. So starting off with the West, guys, I have the Chicago Blackhawks finishing first. Obviously, Stanley Cup winners. I think they're a really strong team. I mean, they went on that run of like 23 wins or 23 lossless, games in the last year's season. So, I mean, that was insane. Obviously, they've lost some guys. They've lost Michael Frolik. They also lost David Boland. I think they lost a guy on defense. Obviously, they lost their backup in Ray Emery, but still a very solid team throughout. I don't think, they're going to be, that much worse of a team. As well, they're in the West now, and there's only 14 teams there, and I feel like they're probably going to dominate the division they're in, the Central Division, and I feel like, they're probably going to win the President's Trophy. May be wrong, but I feel like they might win it again. Second place, guys, I have San Jose. So obviously I have San Jose winning that Pacific Division. I feel like San Jose, hasn't been the greatest playoff team. They're always there, but haven't never won it. And I feel like they're a really strong regular season team. They have a lot of depth on both forward and defense. Really good goaltender in Niemi. And I feel like they're just a really strong team. They're going to be really hard to play against. Third, guys, I have St. Louis. Again, another team with a lot of depth throughout forwards and defense. Good goaltenders in Halak and Elliott. Obviously, St. Louis doesn't really have an all-star. I'd say their biggest all-star is probably like Pietrangelo, but they just have a lot of depth. They just added Brendan Morrow, even adding more depth. They've also got a good playmaking center in Derek Roy. He'll probably play second line behind Backus. So, I mean, they're just going to be really solid throughout. Really tough team to play against. They also added Bomeister and Leopold at the end of last year, so their defense is just really strong. Of course, special manager Shattenkirk already there, so very tough team to play against. At fourth, I have LA. LA is another really good team. Not quite as much depth as the other teams, but I mean, they're still a very strong team to play against. Their forwards really good. Maybe a little bit more depth on the 3rd and 4th lines, but still really strong top 2 lines. Defense is really solid. And of course, they got Jonathan Quick, one of the best goaltenders in the league. At 5th, guys, they have Vancouver. Obviously, Vancouver doing a little worse this year, I think. Lost a lot of their depth. They lost Derek Roy, they picked up at the end of last year. Lost Mason Raymond. Lost Maxim Lapierre. I think they lost a couple guys on defense. I know they let Keith Ballard go. Obviously, they lost Corey Schneider, their backup goaltender, so they're really going to be relying heavily on Luongo and how Luongo plays. Lack will probably win the starting backup job. Might be that guy they picked up from Sweden. I'm forgetting his name, but Vancouver's not going to be quite the team they were last year, but if everyone can stay healthy, I still see them being quite a strong team in the West. 6th, guys, is kind of my surprise team. I have the Winnipeg Jets. They haven't made the playoffs, I think, for 4 or 5 years now. I know they haven't made it as the Winnipeg Jets, at least the new Winnipeg Jets, sorry. And, I think they're just a really strong team. The core of that team is young. They're all, I'd say, around 25, getting better every single game. And I think they're, finally going to make that playoff push. They've added a couple of key additions last offseason. They added Michael Frolik, Devin Setoguchi, and I think that's just going to add a lot of depth for them. As well, I think I can see Mark Scheifele maybe making a jump to the NHL this year as a second-line center behind Brian Little. He just dominated the OHL last year, pretty much single-handedly carried the Barrie Colts to the playoffs, to the Memorial Cup, or sorry, not the Memorial Cup, the OHL final. So I think they're going to be a really tough team to play against this year. Seventh, guys, at Minnesota Wild. They just squeaked in last year, almost didn't make it, almost got robbed by Columbus, but I think Minnesota makes it again this year. Obviously, they too lost some guys. They lost Matt Cullen. They traded away Setaguchi to the Jets. They lost Pierre-Marc Bouchard, and I think they might have lost someone else, but they did bring in Matt Cook to fill out a depth role. As well, they got Jason Palmville at the end of last year. That's a big-time player. I think he got injured in the playoffs, so you didn't really see much of him, but he's still a very good player. If Heatley can come back, fucking all-star, tear it up like he can, 50 and 07, maybe go for 50 and 13, or yeah, so like 6 years later, he could definitely have a good year. But I think with Parise and Suter, not Sutter, Suter, as well as just strong goaltending from Backstrom and Harding, I think they're going to have a good year. Next, guys, at 8th, I have Edmonton. I had Edmonton 8th last year. They kind of disappointed me, and I feel like McTavish has made the right moves to finally get Edmonton into the playoffs, but I think they're just going to squeak in. Obviously, Taylor Hall's going to have to score, 40, 50 goals, which he is capable of. Jordan Eberle's just an all-star. Right now, I'm a little bit worried with their center position. They've got both Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Sam Gagner hurt, but I believe that they're both pretty short-term injuries, so they should be able to get back in not too long of time. He's really strengthened up the defense, bringing in Andrew Ference. Justin Schultz now has a year under his belt in the NHL. Really good offensive defenseman. Probably going to rely heavily on Dubnyk and his play, and whether or not he really wants it bad in regards to if Edmonton makes the playoffs or not. But I feel like they got a good amount of depth now in forward and defense. Obviously, defense isn't the greatest, but I think it's solid enough that with the forwards they have, if Dubnyk plays good, I think they can get that 8th spot. At 9th, guys, I have Dallas. Dallas is kind of always finishing around this place, and I think this year they're going to do the same. They're probably just going to fall short of the playoffs, kind of be a heartbreaker, but Dallas is another really strong team. I really like the moves they made in the offseason, obviously acquiring Tyler Seguin. They had to give up Louis Eriksson, who's a really good player, but I think having him and Jamie Benn both on the left wing was a little overkill. Then they had Ben playing center, he's not naturally at, so they can have, say, a line of Ben, Seguin, and maybe Whitney on the first line, or maybe Cole. That'd be a really strong line. They've also acquired some depth by picking up Horkoff from Edmonton. And they also got Rich Peverly in the Sagan deal, so he's a good third-line center. As well, they signed Sergei Gonchar. There'll be a veteran presence there, help out those younger guys. Obviously, I like them in goal with Kerry Lettinen, so I think they're going to just miss the playoffs, but it's going to be a very exciting team to watch. At 10th, guys, I have Anaheim. This is probably going to make a lot of people mad, but Anaheim's a really off and on team. Last year, they made the playoffs. Year before that, they were at the bottom of the conference, maybe the bottom of the NHL, actually. Year before that, they're in the playoffs. Year before that, they didn't make it, so really an off and on team, and last year they were on. This year I see them being off. All their older guys are older. They traded away Bobby Ryan, which is a huge hit to Anaheim. I mean, I can't believe they gave away one of the best power forwards in the league, in my opinion, for Silverberg, a first, and a prospect. But I mean, obviously it had to do with cap reasons. As well, guys, like I said, Anaheim's off and on. Also, Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf both had contract years last year. If you guys don't know, players always play their best in contract years. It's actually proven statistically. My friend actually did a thing on it, and it actually backed it up. So last year their play was probably par, and it could have been better like in years before. So now that they have those big contracts, I don't see them playing much better. And those two guys are going to be even more heavily relied on now without Bobby Ryan. Also, it's going to be really hard for Francois Beauchemin and Sheldon Surrey to repeat the success they had last year. So I feel like Anaheim's definitely going to have a decline year this year. Still not be that bad, but 10th spots where I see them. At 11, guys, I have Colorado. Obviously not finishing last in the West this year, but I feel like just the new culture in Colorado is definitely going to do a lot for them. I think they made a nice move bringing in Alex Tongate, Corey Sarich, a couple of veterans there to help with the young guys. I know last year they got a little lost on their way. J.S. Shigeru was kind of getting upset with some of the people, and their minds weren't on hockey, I guess. As well, Nathan McKinnon, I think, can make the jump to the NHL. Just such a good player. They're going to be really deep at center. I think they're moving Ryan O'Reilly to the wing, which just makes another line even better. Matt Duchene obviously is coming along really well. Matt Duchene's probably ready to be one of the all-stars in the league, and I think the defense isn't that great. That's why I have them pretty low. Besides Eric Johnson, a couple other guys, not really the nicest thing to look at. Varlamov's a decent goalie. I'll see, maybe Patrick Waugh can help him along. I mean, one of the greatest goaltenders of all time should be able to make his goalie a little bit better, but I still don't see Colorado making the playoffs, nor do I see them finishing at the bottom of the conference this year. At 12th, guys, I have the Nashville Predators. Nashville didn't do too well the last year. I really don't see them doing much better this year. I mean, their defense is amazing. They have Shea Weber, Roman Josi. Now they have Seth Jones is amazing. They also have Ryan Ellis, good offensive defenseman. They have one of the best goalies in the world for sure, but you have to be able to score to win games, and their offense is just not the greatest. And in the Western Conference, where, a lot of defensive teams, a lot of really, depth teams, I think it's going to be a lot even harder for them to score. I still don't see them finishing too bad. Like, they're 12th in the West. I'd probably have them something like 25th in the NHL or something. Probably be a couple teams, maybe even 3 below them from the East. So not the best year for Nashville, but they have a lot of good core talent that's probably going to come up in the next couple years. At 13th, guys, I have Phoenix. I always underestimate Phoenix, but I feel like this year, I can justify it. They didn't have the best year last year. Really didn't bring in anything. They added Mike Ribeiro, but Ribeiro's kind of one of those guys. He's really hot and cold, and I don't really know how he's going to play in Phoenix. He might be one of those guys that thrives in the smaller market. It's hard to say, but I feel like the Phoenix depth isn't that great. They really don't have a big point producer in their team. It's kind of like a win by committee situation, and I feel like it's not going to get done for them in the West. Lastly, guys, at 14th, the last in the West, I have Calgary Flames. So sorry, Flames fans, but I feel like the Calgary Flames are probably going to get last in the NHL this year. They have no starting goaltender. I mean, Mickey Kiprusoff's gone, so they're probably going to start either Ramo or McDonald. That's really not NHL caliber starting goaltenders. They threw away Ginla last year and Bouwmeester, so I think they're going to have a lot of younger kids play this year, and I think they're hoping to do bad. In all honesty, they probably want to go get Sam Reinhart, a future first line center for them. Probably have Reinhart and Monahan coming up from the AHL, the juniors, and that's going to be really scary in like 5 years' time. But for right now, I feel like Calgary is definitely rebuilding, and they probably secretly want to finish at the bottom. That's probably where they're going to finish. So next, guys, going on to the East. East now has 16 teams, so even tougher to make it in the playoffs. Starting off, guys, first place in the East, I have the Boston Bruins winning the Atlantic Division. And obviously, Boston's a very strong team, and they made it to the Stanley Cup final last year, and I feel like they're going to be very tough to play against, even though they lost Sagan, and they lost even Yager, they gained Ginla, they gained Louis Eriksson, and they're still a very strong team, still have Tuukka Rask in net, going to be a really tough team to play against, and I think they finished at the top of the East. Next, guys, at second, I have Pittsburgh Penguins. I feel like they're going to win the Metropolitan. Pittsburgh's still a really strong team, obviously. They lost a few guys they picked up at the end of last year, lost some of their depth in Tyler Kennedy. I think they lost a couple other guys in terms of depth players, but they have a lot of young, good kids. I think they're going to make the NHL team. They still have 2 of the top 3 players in the world, in my opinion, and Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Obviously, Vokun's got that blood clot thing going on, but Fleury's still a good goaltender. He didn't play very well in the playoffs, but he did play fine in the regular season, so I don't think that's too much to worry about. They still have a pretty good defensive core, and I mean, like I said, basically Crosby and Malkin can carry that team to at least 4th place in the East every single year, so as long as everyone else plays their part, I think they can easily get 2nd place and win that Metropolitan Division. At third, guys, I have Ottawa. I think Ottawa's going to have a great year this year. I mean, last year they finished 7th in the East, I believe, or maybe even, they might have finished 8th, and that was with like half their team being an AHL team, so they really surprised, I think, everybody. Craig Anderson's still on his head, so if he plays half as good as he played last year, Ottawa will definitely make the playoffs as well. They now have the addition of Bobby Ryan. Like I said, I'm a huge Bobby Ryan fan. I think he's a very good player. Have him with Spezza, maybe McCallick on one line. That's just amazing. They'll probably have something like Turris, Conacher, MacArthur on the second line, so very strong second line. As well, they have probably the best offensive defenseman in the NHL in Erik Karlsson, and like I said, they're going to be a scary team to play against this year. I think they're going to have a really good year and finish 3rd. At 4th place, guys, I have Montreal Canadiens. Montreal, slipping a little bit. I think they got 2nd last year, but still a very strong team to play against. Very good goaltending to Carey Price. They got Subban, the Norris Trophy winner, as well as some other very good defensemen. Offense, there really isn't an all-star, I'd say, on Montreal, and maybe the closest thing would be Pacioretty, but I think their offense might be one of the best offenses in terms of depth in the NHL. They brought in Danny Briere this year, a little small, but they also have George Peros, so kind of like, make sure no one runs over any of their players, and I think they're going to have a really solid season. At 5th, guys, the New York Rangers. I think the New York Rangers can make the playoffs again this year. Alain Vigneault, I think, might be good for the Rangers. Just a little bit of a change of culture, change of scenery. Henrik Lundqvist, in my opinion, the number 1 goalie in the league. He's going to make sure the Rangers make the playoffs every single year. The Rangers, my opinion, probably have the best defensive core in the league. They don't probably have any of the best defensemen, but those 6 defensemen that they have altogether, probably the best defensive core in the NHL. I mean, Stahl, Delzato, Girardi, McDonough, just those 4 alone. I mean, that's insane. Even their forwards, guys, just really good depth, I think. I think that Gaborik trade actually really added a lot to them. Derek Brassard seems to be coming along a lot, and Rick Nash, obviously, very good power forward, and they still have Brad Richards and Derek Steffen, so good depth at center. I think they're going to be a tough team to play against. At 6, guys, I have the Washington Capitals. I actually think that the Washington Capitals are going to have less points than the next 2 teams, but because there has to be a 3rd team from the Metropolitan, I have it being the Washington Capitals. Obviously, they have one of the best players on their team as well, Alexander Ovechkin. They brought in Mikhail Grabowski after losing Ribeiro, so it's kind of, trade off, basically kind of the same player, kind of same caliber. Obviously, their goaltending, Holtby, Neuwirth, isn't the best, but it's still pretty good. Defense, pretty good defense. Obviously, Mike Green, John Carlson, Carl Osner, very strong defense. And then the offense, they don't have the greatest depth, I don't think, especially at center. I mean, after Nick Backstrom, they don't have the best of guys, but I think they definitely have the right parts to make a playoff push and maybe, try to upset somebody once they get there. At seventh, guys, I have my Detroit Red Wings. So obviously they're moving over to the East. It's gonna be a lot different for them to play, but I think they're definitely gonna make the playoffs still. Obviously, we lost Damian Brunner, Valerie Filppula, a couple other guys this offseason, but we made a lot of good moves. We brought back Alfie, or sorry, not brought back, brought in Alfie, good veteran player. Again, get a lot of stuff done for us. Also, replaced Filppula with Stefan Weiss. So basically replaced Brunner with Alfie, Filippi with Weiss. I think those are pretty good upgrades. Jimmy Howard's been playing amazing. All of our young players, I think, that are just growing and going to become better NHL players with all the experience. But I still don't know how well we're going to be doing in the East in our first year. It's going to be different for sure. So I think we make it, but I think it's going to be probably a rude awakening for us, and we'll finish 7th. At 8th, guys, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Toronto Maple Leafs will squeak into the playoffs again this year. Or actually, they didn't squeak last year. They made it in 5th. But this year, I think they'll squeak in. All the moves they made, I think, were upgrades. Obviously, going from Scrivens to Bernier for their backup, maybe starter behind Reimer. They also lost MacArthur, replaced him with Mason Raymond. I think Mason Raymond is a very good very good player. Can't believe another team didn't pick him up. Also, obviously, bringing in David Clarkson, really good power forward for them. Nazem Kadri now coming off that last year where he tore it up. Should be looking to play even better this year. Even players like JVR, I think, just going to be doing even better. If Kessel can score, Lupo can score, I think Toronto will have a good year and they'll just make it into the playoffs. At 9th, guys, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, a lot of people are picking Columbus to make to the playoffs this year. I feel like that's not going to happen. Columbus is another team coming from the West to the East, so it's going to be a big change for them. And one thing with Columbus I don't see is really a lot of depth at center. I think they have Dubinsky and Anisimov as their top two. That's not the greatest top two centers, especially when you're in the East. Obviously, Marian Gaborik has to play better than he did last year for New York, and I think he will. They also brought Nathan Horton, a good power forward, and their defense also a very strong defense, not as strong as New York's, but very close. Bobrovsky has to play good for the Columbus Blue Jackets to do good, and I don't see him repeating last year, but if he can play maybe half to 3/4 as good as he did, they'll have a good year. Unfortunately for the Columbus Blue Jackets fans, I see them finishing 9th and just missing the playoffs, but definitely being competitive. At 10th, guys, I have Tampa Bay. I think they're going to bounce back for sure from the pretty poor season they had last year. Unfortunately, not going to be good enough to make the playoffs. Obviously, their top two players there in Stamkos and St. Louis. Stamkos almost won the Research Shard last year. St. Louis won the Art Ross. Just two of the best scoring players in the league. Jonathan Drouin probably going to make that team, make that offense even better. One thing I don't know about Tampa Bay is their depth on forwards. It depends really if they bring some of the young kids up and how they perform in the NHL. Their defense looks good on paper, but seems to never really perform that well. And another big question is, will Bishop and or Lindback, play well and really earn a starting job and be the NHL starting goaltender opposed to kind of like a backup / start some games goalie. So a couple too many questions in Tampa Bay, but I still think they're competitive and finish 10th. At 11, guys, I have Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a team that looks even better than Tampa Bay on paper, but I really don't know what's going on in Philadelphia. They're a team that tried to get younger, trading away Richards and Carter, and now they're bringing in players that are older veterans like LeCavier, Streit, and even Emery. Their goalie situation is probably the biggest thing. They lost Brizgalov, and they have Mason and Emery going into this year. Mason was really good his Calder year, hasn't been the same goalie since. Emery's more or less a career backup. Obviously, he played pretty well this year, though, in Chicago, but you have to look at the team in front of him, so I don't know how goaltending is going to be in Philadelphia. The defense, another thing, a big question for Philly. Obviously, a lot of injuries, but even without the injuries, Philly's defense isn't that great. And then the offense, obviously, is a good offense, but I feel like Philly has to stay healthy the whole entire year to make the playoffs, and obviously that's not going to happen. I really don't like Philadelphia's depth that much, so I feel like they're a team that's probably going to fall short of expectations and finish 11th. At 12th, guys, I have New Jersey Devils. I have them missing the playoffs again for the second year in a row, which hardly ever happens to the Devils, but losing Kovalchuk was a huge, huge loss for them. They lost a huge all-star, and they replaced him with Jaromir Jagr, Michael Ryder, Ryan Claude, Damian Brunner, I guess you could say. So they replaced basically like an A-plus player with 4, B- B players. So I don't really say that would kind of replace. Ryan Claude is a power forward, doesn't really do much scoring anymore. Jaromir Jagr's getting older. He can still, complete dirty sauce passes and other things, but he's still an older player. Brunner, I really liked in Detroit. Don't know why it took him so long to sign, so I think that's a good signing for the Devils. Michael Ryder's another older guy. You really don't know what you're going to get out of him. So New Jersey, a team that looks like they have the potential to be good, but I personally just don't see it working for them. That's why they're going to finish 12th. The defense, not that bad, and then of course in goalie, they have two good goalies in Schneider and Brodeur. But again, guys, I don't like what I'm seeing in Jersey. They have some pretty decent depth, but they really don't have basically they don't have like a game-changing player, and I feel like you need that to kind of make yourself get that push into the playoffs. At number 13, guys, I have Carolina. This is kind of low for Carolina, but I feel like they're one of those teams that is going to take a couple more years to get better. Their defense is not the best defense in the league. Cam Ward's a very good goaltender. I'm still not sure if he's 100% healthy or not. Their forwards, they have two really good top lines, and their third and fourth line are not that great. So I feel like that lack of depth at forward as well, though kind of weak D, is going to be the reason that they fall short. At 14, guys, I'm New York Islanders. New York Islanders did make the playoffs last year, which is really good. Even gave Pittsburgh a run for their money, but I feel like the New York Islanders kind of thrived off that shorter season last year. I feel like if it was a full season, they may not have made the playoffs. John Tavares pretty much puts that team on his back every single year, and they ride it wherever they ride it to. And I think Tavares is going to do the same again this year. And I mean, they made a couple additions with Pierre-Marc Bouchard, Cal Clutterbuck coming in, a couple of I wouldn't say veterans, but older players who can get some things done for them. But I feel like just New York Islanders behind Tavares and maybe Matt Wilson, they really don't have much there going for them. Obviously on defense too, they lost Mark Streit, their number one defenseman. Didn't replace him with anybody. I was expecting them to maybe sign Ryan Whitney, or somebody, and they didn't do that. The Blackhawks are starting goaltender. He's getting older. He's like in his mid to late 30s, so I don't see the Islanders making the playoffs this year. They're finishing 14th, so we'll see what happens with them. At 15th, guys, I have Buffalo. Buffalo's a team I feel is definitely in a rebuilding phase. Obviously, they traded away just Pommel at the end of the year last year. Derek Roy before that. There's been trade talk about Vanek and Miller both. The star forward, star goaltender. Defense hasn't been looking that good, but they have a lot of young defensemen there, obviously, in Tyler Myers. They drafted a couple defensemen this year, and Ristolainen and Zadorov. Obviously, they picked up a couple centers before that in Gurjensen and Grigorenko. So a lot of young players there. Hodgson just got a new deal, and it's just got a new deal. So I think Buffalo's a young team. It's not going to do that well this year, but definitely in 2 or 3 years, going to be a strong competitive team. And lastly, guys, 16th in the East, I have the Florida Panthers. I feel like Florida Panthers is going to be the team competing with Calgary Flames for the first overall pick, most likely Sam Reinhart. So Florida really they have, Huberdeau's there. They have Brian Campbell, who's a good defenseman. Goalies, I mean, they're the only team that gave Tim Thomas a tryout, so it shows you they're not too confident in their goalie situation with Jacob Markstrom. They don't have the best of depth at all in forward or defense. They don't really have the best roster at all. So that's why I have Florida at the last place spot in the East. Obviously, they could, be a little of a surprise, maybe make a playoff push, but definitely not a playoff team, and I think probably 16th in the East. So anyway, guys, those are my playoff predictions. I hope you enjoyed them. Obviously pretty long, but I decided I was just going to go all out here, go in depth, explain everything. So you guys can let me know in the comments what you think of this. Hopefully you didn't watch this whole video staring at the screen. I hope you listened to it and didn't watch it. Otherwise, I feel like I wasted some of your time. But if you did, there were some images there. But anyway, guys, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think of these predictions. Obviously, they are predictions. They are meant to be wrong. There's no way I could be 100%, but hopefully I'm pretty accurate. And stay tuned for my NHL 14 videos, guys. We have a bunch of those coming out soon. And besides that, guys, have a nice day. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
It's the kind of beat to go.